Yes.
There you go. All right. Good evening, everybody. It is January 8th, 2025 at 7:01 p.m. and I'm going to call the meeting of the Capital Improvement Program Committee to order. We have myself, Jim Marshall, Steph Summers, Kristen Willis, Scott, Peter Tanaka in attendance. I absently have Melissa McKinnon, unless Melissa, if your iPad, feel free to chime in. Jen McCoo and Donna. We have 2 vacancies currently, so 5 is a quorum, so we have a quorum and it was that. First up is present to speak. Start in the room. No? All right. Anybody online? Raise your hand and unmute yourself. Going once, going twice. All right. You'll have another opportunity.
Yeah, John.
For those just joining, John, present to speak, if you feel inclined, otherwise there'll be a chance at the end of the meeting. All right, moving on. Approval of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of December 18th.
I'll second it.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Good, Jen.
Just wondering, do we have minutes being captured tonight, or are they gonna be come off the?
Oh, excuse me. That's right, after all that discussion, Lisa's gonna be taking them off the recording. But she has asked me, and apologies, Lisa, we have recording. Apologies, Lisa, recording the meeting for you, and back up, second too late. Call the meeting order at 7:01 p.m.
And no present to speak.
And no need to speak.
And Pete just made a motion to approve the minutes from December, and I seconded. Christina Milos.
There you go. All right, so discussion, did anybody have any comments? I perused these when we got them. Nothing jumped out, they were thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, looking to approve the minutes of December 18th, 2024. Oh, sorry. Oh, just say all in favor, voting now, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed?
I'll abstain, I was not a classmate.
All right, 1 abstention.
That was too hot.
4-1. That's too hot, thank you. Bear with me, this is my first meeting now, having stepped in his chair, so will we get the procedures right,
I've got
everybody?
3
listen?
copies of the same thing here, that's why I'm confused, I think.
Yeah,
It's 3 copies of the same thing.
it's from,
No, it's not the same thing.
there's a front and back, a 2-sided piece of paper.
All right, I got 1 front, 2 fronts and 1 back, that's what my thought.
There you go. All right, so minutes are approved. All right, next up is chair status report. So I added this, not as a need to have this be a recurring thing, but I needed a place to dump a lot of discussion without making an agenda item. That was a lot of updates on where the committee's at, in the transition process here without having a very long agenda. So, first things first, we talked about it a little earlier, but for the record, Lisa is staying on as a recording secretary for the committee for the balance of the year.
Yeah.
She has a number, yes, we're all thankful. She has a number of conflicts, and will largely, she has a number of conflicts, particularly during the first 3 months, so she'll be at a handful of meetings. But she'll be here in person when she can, otherwise she'll be taking recordings and getting us all of our material ahead of time, like we did tonight. So thank you, Lisa, for coordinating all of that in your absence. Transition. So as I mentioned to those listening online, at our last meeting, I transitioned in as chair with Christina staying on as vice chair for the committee. That's, yeah, thank you. That process is still a little ongoing. We had a transition meeting last Thursday. I got access to the portal and email, and I'm fully up and running now as of Monday. So that is helpful. By way of update, I'm gonna jump down on my notes. By way of submission status, so I sent out all of the department heads and committee chairs were notified that the portal was live. It will be closing on January 21st, right before our meeting 2 weeks from now, or the day before our meeting 2 weeks from now. So they were given instructions, they were aware that it's live, and hopefully, even though it's delayed, our survey that we sent out at the end of last year at least has things at the forefront of people's minds. So that as they refresh their submissions, it'll hopefully be a quick process for those doing it time and time again. Christina, you are currently set up as, you're in the workflow.
Mhm.
I think you're just gonna be bombarded with,
Okay,
we can discuss and decide whether or not you wanna get every submission approval, because it's gonna
Okay.
start happening, well, it'll happen the day before.
okay.
But let me know, we can talk to Mike Amato and, see if I get you on.
Can I just clarify, just because
Certainly.
portals make me feel like, oh gosh, are we doing, something with Keanu Reeves? They only have until mid-January to update their existing asks, hopefully with better figures or whatever, dates and everything. And then it closes and we implement that into the plan. What happens if someone misses that deadline?
We, as has happened in years past, things do come up. You know, we've added like the emergency services facilities building committee funding happened as a decision
Right,
here. So
right.
that does happen, but by and large, the hope is that, because we have, the various boards coming in that following week to, start
Right,
presenting
to start.
their concepts, so, we are delayed this year, we'll be lenient if situations arise, I think, as we always are. But the goal is to get everything in, so we can have that first pass kind of, probably, because we have a lot to update.
So did you send like a group email
Yes.
to all those guys? Okay.
Yep, everybody was made aware today.
Did this come from last year? Or,
It was supposed to, I haven't looked at it yet. As
the only thing is that it says under total public works, it's all library stuff, and under total library, it's all board of
Oh, yeah,
selectmen
it's
stuff.
the status, as of
And
4/24/24.
under wait a minute,
Yes.
I see we're going above instead of below the line, never mind.
Yeah, she has, the top line, she has revised
Got
reference
it.
number 2.
No, never mind, I was
Okay.
looking at it backwards. That's on me.
So, we have, by way of vacancies, we are too short currently. We've had a vacancy for a number of months now, and we did officially get, or Pete's office did officially get a resignation.
The town clerk's office did. That's where those go.
Correct, so town clerk's office got Karen Ann's resignation, she's unable to make the timing work, it was too much for her Wednesday schedule. So she's still obviously willing to be a resource, for matters regarding the library, but we have 2 vacancies, I know Pete, do you have any updates?
I do have, I received letters from Jeremy right here and from, Peter Bacon, who's currently upstairs jumping up and down apparently. It sounds like him, half the size of some of those folks.
Christina, somebody's gonna need those.
Oh. Yes, there is. Tom Snyder.
Jeremy, what's your
Jeremy,
last
what?
name?
Brothers.
Brothers.
Since we have you in the room, hi, thanks for your interest, you're welcome to say something or just listen and.
No, I just listened for it.
All right. You mind just kind of giving some insights into affirming, well, you're gonna do it as a board of selectmen, but I'd love to hear what some of your background maybe.
So I worked in construction for 30 years as a general contractor. They retired. And I actually opened up my own shop and continuing on doing commercial construction, basically healthcare, municipality garages, that's what I do. Buildings out of the ground, renovations, like I said, to hospitals, put CT scanners in,
Mhm.
built ORs, stuff like that, so.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thanks for your interest.
No problem.
Select, no,
Yeah, and I was a project manager for 15 years in the other company, so.
excellent, I appreciate that background. I'm sure- With where we're at, I'm sure it'll be helpful as we go through the years here. Yeah, by all means, listen, if you switch, if you haven't been paying attention, in the past, feel free, there's a lot to get up to speed on, and welcome. So the last thing I had under the chair status report is we had a meeting, Christina and I sat on Monday night's Board of Selectmen meeting, and had a very lengthy discussion, walking through the plan last year. It wasn't so much a presentation by the CIP committee as it was a presentation from the Board of Selectmen, and then our feedback on, helping to provide understanding of line by line items. But it was productive. I think it was a good discussion. We had a long one. It's nice to see them engaged overall, this early in the process. It's helpful. I hope they continue to engage them as we move this along. But yeah, it was, all in all, I think it was an effective presentation, and, we'll discuss it a little later, but, you know, they've been discussing facilities manager for the town at their past two meetings now. It came up again, on Monday. You know, it's up for discussion for them, as well as just how we start to address some of these needs, in town, so we'll keep them up to date as we move forward.
I've got I've got the third hour left, so I think you guys got through almost through emergency services, and we're heading into public works land.
Oh, gosh.
I know, so there's another hour after that.
Wow.
I thought it was good because you were doing a lot of sort of primer for, you know, people who weren't as versed in the plan. And I thought I would recommend it for people who maybe don't understand CIP or just want a really good update, because you guys, I mean, you went over tons of stuff there and history and, you know, it's the one-stop shopping for
Right.
quite a while.
Why
Christina covers the
things-
history.
Yeah, why things are the way they are.
Yeah, why they are the way they are, and Fund 17, you know? So, anyway, so kudos to you guys, because you seem to have good recall, both of you. Total
I think
recall.
Christina's
maybe.
probably better than mine, but,
Try to forget.
not yet. All right, so that's all I have, just by way of update. It's the next 2 weeks as we get things rolling, or bear with me, those online and everybody here, as I clearly get my feet wet. Taking a lead, so.
The only thing I'd recommend, and I know you guys, I don't think you were aware of how that was gonna turn and how it was, you know, there's questions written in the margin that I think Matt had inserted or something, I'm not sure. But, you know, Phil should have really been there, and actually, maybe on the agenda item, it could have been a little more inclusive for citizens to come in, because you guys were talking about the future of the schools, the future of the fire departments, you know. I don't know that people were ready, since that hadn't happened as a big review in Board of Selectmen before. I think you alluded to it, Jim, at the first. It would have been good to have some, you know, some preparation and notice for folks to come in and hear that. Cause it was such a broad discussion. That's just my view, because it was a lot of time and, experience there at the table.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mentioned it during the meeting, Pete, but I will lobby for, as we do things like that, we're gonna share, you know, material, anything we can get in advance, so that we at least aren't walking in blind to what the intent of discussion is. It's usually helpful. And I'll do the same here, is trying to get, I'm going to endeavor to get all the material out by Monday to everybody.
Thank you.
Understanding that we meet weekly for the next 3 months, and be ready for that. All right. So with that said, moving on to new business, which is really
What we did last week.
what we did on Monday. We are So, yeah, Steph had a good point. It is Monday's meeting at the Board of Selectmen. Is worth a good watch. That meeting is up on YouTube now. Be prepared. It is a good 2 hours of CIP discussion. But with that said, we haven't in months had a chance to review, the status of where last year's, where the current year's, projects are.
Right.
And I think it's also a good idea before we really get into the, swing of things to review what we had in year 2 last year, which is going to be all of the things that conceivably are going to come up again today.
Right.
We didn't focus too heavily on that, at the meeting on Monday night, but just as a refresher, some of the big picture items to refresh ourselves on is that the transfer.
Kind of give this to them.
Oh, yeah, sure, we have
It's gonna
actually.
be torture for you guys, if you don't see what we're talking about.
Okay.
It's hard enough when you're looking at it. You know what we're talking about.
No.
Oh, wait a second. That's.
That is a 2-pager. Yeah, it's a 2-page.
You can keep that, Jeremy, that all missing things are coming. So, yeah, just, by way of recap for those who attended the CIP meetings, last year's plan had originally captured 1.5 million, as a transfer to the school for school projects. We had reduced the transfer to the capital reserve fund for other projects down to, it ended up at 31,000, to balance and not cause a dramatic spike in the total spending, being sensitive to the very difficult budget year last year. Just staying on that topic, in year 2, which is the year we're working on now, we had flopped those numbers quite a bit. With a little over $1 million going into the reserve fund transfer for townwide projects and reducing the school transfer to $500,000. We will obviously review that as the submissions come in, but it is a very valid point. And looking at the the budget projections, we do only carry a $133,000 projected balance in the capital reserve fund for projects.
Showing up.
It's the
Oh, it's on
133.
this.
Yeah, it's the end of year 1 and year 2. That's on the 5-year budget projection, which people in the audience can also take a copy of it if you didn't get that. That's what the budget is. So that is not a healthy scenario either. So ultimately, we are gonna have to have discussions about how to gradually get this fund balance up so that we're not always reacting, or putting things off. And then we'll also have to address, I know that you discussed it, and if I recall, Phil sent in a letter to our survey response saying that they're hoping the committee can level fund, to the school fund this year for school projects, because their needs are yet to be, I think, fully defined, but they are looking at a significant project one way or the other, or significant continued needs that hasn't changed. So those are big grappling points for this year, and we can address those after these submissions come in. But
And it was the QA&M thing that, presentation that sort of changed their whole study process of how to get their hands around it.
well, yeah, and that was discussed on Monday, and it's a good point to note, moving on forward on these, you're moving into the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
Projects we had captured last year, but a lot of what we do, what we have to react to is sometimes hypothetical. At the time that this report was prepared, and during the discussions last year, that QA&M, their ongoing facility study wasn't complete. There were they provided us with what they thought were the best available, projections to cover the capital needs that seemed to have support for roofs, HVAC repairs, and, solar's in there as part of that package to be able to capitalize on grant reimbursement. Those haven't happened. I know they've got further study from QA&M and a much more detailed funding structure, but I don't wanna get ahead of that discussion before bed, it's their decision to
Right.
present. So those numbers will be changing, and those were not expended, so.
Yeah, I think that's a big, a key point. One is, we went off of the best information that we were given at the time, which was well over 6 months ago. If they've done something different, they've done, or they're thinking something different now, that's neither here nor there in terms of what we're planning for next year, but the point is that money hasn't been spent. Like, it's not like they got the funds and spent it on something else. It's still sitting there in the account and it's still there to help us with future bond payments or to future projects that come up,
And it's
So-
earning interest.
and
Yes,
earning interest.
that
So
interest is
So,
meaningful,
it's
actually.
not like all is lost and like everything's gone off the rails.
Right.
It's just that those particular things haven't happened yet, that they thought were going to happen in this fiscal year.
And I heard you guys talking about solar. My understanding of solar is it's a great payoff in the end, but it's not, the payoff doesn't kick in fast. Is that your experience?
There's, in my experience, having done this for a number of schools, there's a variety of factors, including programs are available, what state you're in.
Well, I was wondering, for
For
instance, how
Connecticut.
EO is going, because they've had their solars in for a while.
Oh, I have,
I
mean,
know that they're having issues in Ashford.
Oh, yeah.
They're having big issues with their, because, I don't know what the deal was with their school, but I know with their fire department, the roof went bad underneath the
It's the
salt
panels.
panels, which they couldn't get as many panels as they had originally projected because the roof wouldn't hold it. So then they had to take the panels off and it was gonna cost them more to take the panels off and put them back on. Then the whole project was gonna pay off in the end, but there was a fine if they didn't, so they did, and
But that's why you
It's
do the
costing them
project
money.
together, is, I mean, they're,
yeah,
you
well,
right?
don't
It's
get-
a day for
yeah, I
that.
don't think you get reimbursement for it, the solar panel will be done in conjunction with the
Okay,
replacement.
okay.
But with that said, yes, that's something our whole school would need to consider too, and a way to.
the thing is that when we were discussing solar, if I remember correctly, and God knows that's if, we wanted to see a study on what you said, what's the ROI, what's the return on investment, when does it come in? Will we make more money than it costs us? We wanted to see something that projected that, and they said they had no idea that they were still looking into it. And that they expected to do a study to show it one way or the other, and then based on that projection on whether they would pull this or try to keep it. So we still haven't seen any of that, and as far as I know, it still hasn't been done, so.
Yeah, I don't believe it has either, I don't even know, I don't wanna dwell on it, cause I don't even know if it's
Okay.
in consideration
Sorry,
currently.
Yeah, they may have,
Sorry,
they may have
question.
put some
Yeah, I
consideration.
don't wanna step on the board of that, we do
Right.
have.
No, we need to hear from them.
But just by way of update, generally, that's where those values stood. So there is a balance, unspent for those projects. What I will say is, and I did have the opportunity to sit with Donna and go through, we discussed it on Monday as well, that $80,000 for the chimney
Yeah,
was performed out of operating budget, and not from the school repair fund. I have a letter in, Donna tells me we need a formal letter from Bill, to suggest the release of those funds as needed, so that we can release the funds back into the reserve fund.
So, on the earmark.
Correct, on the earmark,
Is that
so-
the word? Probably not.
Go ahead, make up new
On
words.
the earmark.
But the work was
It's like
complete.
verbing nouns, one of my favorite things.
It was done, I think it's gonna be cheaper than the initial estimates came in. I don't know whether they changed repairs or what, or tactics or strategies, but, so that's another positive account balance that we can look at.
which one, besides the 80?
That 80,000.
Oh, you're talking about that.
All of that, the school funds, for those repair projects that we're trying to capitalize on grant reimbursement. Beyond that, moving on to EM, I don't want to dwell line by line. I will provide updates on some of the ones that you guys, because you're all familiar. And we'll get into line by line as we do this. The $200,000 for the emergency services facilities committee is not expended, but partially, committed, I think. You guys.
Yeah, I think they've got 20, what was it, 30, 29,
30.
30,
It's 39 and change.
39 and change?
No, it's close to 40, isn't it? For the
Yeah,
study?
About 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original thought that was gonna be 20 instead of 39, that's why I have 20 in my mind still.
And I imagine there's gonna be additional spending over the course of this year to continue to advance whatever the,
I think they're waiting for the study. That was the sticking point of all of it, was to engage a consultant, get that done, and then move on from there.
so the funding is there, we'll have to go through your standard process, which is fine. Parking lot replacement, Pete,
Yeah, they haven't spent any money on that yet. They've taken some cold patch and filled in enough so they can plow their lot. But they will need that next year. They were trying to put that off for a couple years because they thought that they might be getting a new building across the street, and why would you fix a parking lot that you're not gonna be using? But now it looks like they may be there for some time. So before we lose a car into the septic system, we would really need to fix that.
Sinkholes.
Yeah,
Could you, could we note that that's WHFD instead of, because it doesn't say what it's for.
it's Wellington Hill, not W, where are we?
Yeah, it is.
WHFD.
WHFD.
Fire
This is-
department.
This is like the final version that was presented at town meeting.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
whatever we do next, it's gonna be totally
Did we
Okay.
combine two
Okay.
parking lot problems there?
combined.
Because I think Station 13 had some
Yeah.
apron problems too, and I think they may have put both parking lots into one line.
I think
I
they
can't
might,
imagine,
because, but it was just the, wasn't it the apron of?
yeah, but that project is,
Yeah.
Not happening,
On hold.
we cut big holes in it already, and
okay.
put in pipe that was missing.
Is it, so then the total might be an issue too?
Yeah, I think we may need to reevaluate that line to
Well, as with any requests that came in from pricing, it could have been from 12 to 18 months ago.
Mhm.
All department heads need to reevaluate
Absolutely,
the costs and bring in the updated number.
to the best that we know how. Yep. So hopefully we'll get an update on that, if it did capture both, and the Station 13 apron is being pulled from it.
I believe at one point CIP was specifically requesting written quotes from the vendors, just so you knew where that number came
Yeah.
from.
Did we get a better definition of what the air containment system item is?
no.
Is is it an exhaust or is it,
The
or is it,
refilling tanks.
refilling the tanks?
No, it's, subject to change when the, request comes in, but it's for the South Station,
That's what.
and it's a,
Ocean
because it's
thing?
so tight, it's an OSHA thing, and it's not an exhaust system, because we can't fit the exhaust hoses beside the truck, because they're too tight to the wall. So it's gonna be more of a filtering system with maybe some makeup air to work with that.
That hasn't changed based on the OSHA.
It's in their list.
The OSHA report, we got the OSHA report.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is
Yes.
we're not able for on it, though, are we expecting that, is it a new request, because I don't have it. Hold up.
Same request, and last year we didn't anticipate it because of OSHA, just
Yeah.
OSHA happened to walk in and they brought that up as well.
By the way, I know Board of Finance asked to see the OSHA report, and I don't know that, I haven't seen it come into our.
It
Came to the selectmen.
It came to my office and Alex has got a copy. We got it like 2 days ago. It's on the.
Could it be forwarded to
Yeah, as soon as I open the envelope.
Bruce and company? Okay.
Alright,
So we're, yeah,
So coming up in now year one, we have squad 113 refurbished slated, if that's stated. For a $225,000 line item.
is part of this building committee, facilities committee doing also reviewing equipment? To see what, if we have duplicate equipment or,
I think they'll probably fall under the efficiency committee.
okay. Which we just canceled because you guys are having a meeting next Tuesday.
Sure.
Alex just told me that everybody from Station 13 is meeting, so.
Yeah, I would actually say I would consider it relevant, because we're planning on housing and equipment in a capital project.
And that's also part of
So
the,
there's
part of the consultant study as well.
So we should have further update on that, I think, as the committee's work
The
progresses.
consultant said, I believe, that they were hoping for 90 days after the signature of the contract to, get their part done.
I think Andy mentioned on Monday,
Good.
you haven't had a kickoff for them yet,
We
right?
have
So
not
we're
received
still,
that.
so we're gonna be, so that's a point of note, as we get into what we have in year 3 or 2 years from now. The $11.5 million bond item,
Yeah,
we are not gonna see the results or any results, and likely be hard pressed to see any order of magnitude cost for any new station, renovation station, repair station scenarios, before our season is over this year.
mhm.
So I hope, I'm gonna ask for them, you know, when we have them in. As we discuss their project, their process, but given that 90-day timeframe, we're not gonna have that data as we hoped, when we talked about this last year, so.
Yeah, I think it is good though to talk about the vehicle coordination, especially if we're gonna go into one centralized house. In the future.
Can I ask Stu, this is a dumb question, but I don't know, maybe it's not dumb. So the ambulance lease payment, that's, 48,000. That's the same ambulance that you guys are replacing the chassis on.
That's correct.
So it was purchased used, is that why?
No,
Okay.
The one-
Explain it to me again.
So the ambulance is going out for what they call refurbishment or
Yeah.
remount the box,
Mhm.
so to speak. It was bought in 2015, new.
Yeah,
Has 180 something thousand miles on it. And it's time, to do something with the cab and chassis. We found a company in Florida that will remount it. The biggest reason we went with them is they can turn it around in 5 months.
Mhm.
We looked at some other vendors, they could do it for the same job, 2 years. You'd have to wait for it. And that's the typical time nowadays for fire trucks is 2 to 3 years
Yeah,
to get anything in this business now. So the contract, I believe, has been signed, about within a week or so. I know got approved at town meeting a few weeks ago.
So you're talking about line 27?
well, I'm just realizing, there's line
Sorry,
27.
so to clarify, that's the red ambulance, and because it's 243,000, it will be less than that because we're not leasing a new one, we're refurbing an old one.
Right, so,
Well, we get rid of the cabin chassis, so you end up with a new VIN number.
Yeah,
And you end up with the ability to lease it.
Stuart, what I'm saying is that at the end of this project, it's gonna cost less than a new one.
Yes.
There we go.
Not a lot, I think it was about $40,000 less than a new one, but
Mhm.
more importantly, a new one is 2 years to get a new one.
Yeah.
And, because between COVID and the end of COVID and I think every manufacturer laying off their employees, not all of them coming back. And then Ford with their chassis prices for like 2 years, where you couldn't get one, like a lottery that you had to bid on, that got delayed. Now, something I think our chairman mentioned last year was that wouldn't it be great to at least put some money down on these as opposed to leasing 100% of it?
Mhm.
The 48,000 or whatever has been put into Fund 17 for the last 2 years and unspent. So if you look at the balance sheet for Fund 17, it's almost $383,000, I think, balance on that. The lease has not been signed yet. That won't happen until we get a VIN number when they actually acquire the chassis. I'll throw out an idea. Why don't we take the almost $100,000 that we put into Fund 17 for the last 2 years and pay that off sooner instead of later? So instead of leasing the entire amount of the dollar figure for doing that is you pay down 100,000 on it, and that way your interest rates are less and you get it paid off earlier.
So is that 100,000 applied to the 243? I mean, is it already?
It's the 48,638, which Donna has set aside, and that was from the figures from a couple years ago. And we've been delayed trying to find a vendor, find a chassis, find somebody who can build it in a timely manner. So that money's been put into Fund 17, so that's why the balance on Fund 17, if you look at the other page, says, we have $383,000
Yeah.
in there.
And
So part of the projections that we have to do in a somewhat timely manner is do you want to lease the entire amount of the ambulance? Or do you want to take that 100,000 we've been saving the last 2 years and put it at the ambulance now?
So, clarify this then for me, Steve, because I'm confused. I thought that was, so that's this 48,638 that's been on here. That's been a placeholder for this
For the
reverberation.
last 2 years, yeah,
So we haven't actually been making that lease payment.
that's
Okay.
correct.
It's
But that was
kinda-
for the
it's
same
kinda like a
refurbishment.
shock absorber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like a
Yeah.
shock.
It's
absorber.
a shock
absorber.
absorber.
And in fact,
Concept.
it needs shocks, that's why we're getting a chassis.
Yeah,
Well, so
Well, here's a question.
is that 240, but didn't we add 62 or whatever in
I think it's
town
up
meeting?
to 360 feet, was it?
360?
The figure at the
Yes.
town meeting.
So that would
I
be,
don't
instead of
really
243,
remember,
it
I'm
would be
sorry.
360.
That's correct.
well, no, 360 is the total, because it's more than 5 years. That 243 is the 5-year total of those lease payments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
But it's 7 years,
But-
no, now going
Is
back,
it 7?
It would be
Would
seven,
be.
but if,
but not if we do what he's saying.
so these numbers, yes, correct. So that number of 483, 48,638 is probably not accurate. And it will
Right.
go out to 2032 or.
well, then depending on how many years you finance it, you have to,
Right.
rework the figures and see where you wanna end up. We've also asked Donna to update the estimated income, again, on the second page, which shows the Fund 17, additions, that they're estimating at 175. And I've asked Donna to update that to give us like a 5-year history of where that's going.
Well, that was
Would one-
increased last year, because it was,
Yeah.
historically, we were holding that as like a $40,000 addition, I think. Or-
Yeah, I think it was 145, 150
It
or
was, it
something.
was
listed there.
lower, and I
So
think you increased it.
We
when the second
raised,
annual
it
came.
up some, but I haven't seen the total figures for the last 5 years to kind of see what are the trends, are we gonna, peak out somewhere?
One of the other considerations is the second ambulance is not
Not doing,
able to be utilized and will be for the foreseeable future.
well, it's gonna be used for the next 5 months while the other one's down south getting remounted.
Well, correct, I'm saying, is, this increased balance, this increased addition value assumes, was due to an assumption that the second ambulance was bringing in more revenue.
No.
than 17.
It was always described as it's a standby ambulance when the first one's out for
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time getting fixed, and you didn't lose the income for a month.
Am I crazy though, in remembering Alex saying that they were getting significant additional revenue?
Yeah.
But it was there.
But I think that in his mind, it's because, it's not that they're running two at the same time, it's
Yeah.
that they're always
They
able
don't
to
have
run
downtime.
one.
You don't have the loss.
They don't have
You know,
downtime.
lost-
We've had some periods of time, I think it was up for 6 weeks. And we actually borrowed a ambulance from Yukon, but now their lawyers have gotten involved and say, we can't do that anymore. We borrowed Stafford ambulances, but they're getting much older and they generally don't have all 3 in service anyways. So it's kind of like if you own a small business and your business burned down, it isn't so much fixing it up, you'll, deal with that, it's your loss of income. And if we don't have an ambulance for 2, 3, 4 weeks or more, we get 0 income during that time period.
And we're still paying salaries the whole time. too.
So what does additions mean? That means,
That's
The,
the,
Are they
the-
expecting
the
the fund to
expected,
grow
the
that
expected
long?
income from the ambulance billing to be added to Fund 17.
I got a phone call.
let me make a note, follow up with Donna about that 5-year projections too.
Now, going back many years, since some, we've been around a while, we used to only lease the ambulances for 5 years. That's when we were running the Fords previously. Then for about 17 years, we got into running the heavy duty chassis. We had one international, and we had 2 or 3 Freightliners, which are much bigger and heavier and stood up much better. This last go around in 2015, they decided to go back to the Ford. And when we got the heavy duty chassis, we went to 7 years because we knew they could stand up longer. We've gone back to the Ford. Donna's kept the 7-year term on it, when previously we always did 5 years on the Fords.
So should we revisit that term too?
Yeah, well,
I-
you have to look at the whole picture. What do you have for income? What do you have for a balance in that fund? What are your needed expenditures to purchase whatever you're purchasing? And then how long do you need to stretch out the payments to match kind of your income?
The simple answer is yes. Because, and Christina and I have been working in the background on developing that, that wire equipment and vehicle inventories, so that we can
Figure out
help
that part of it.
out kind of a 10-year, rolling capital need, and, yeah, I think it'll be part of the discussion. I also think the need is gonna be greater than anything on 17. That's in, but we have to figure it out, how to split that out. But yes, I think that's all valid. So I'll ask this next question, line 28. Stu, is that still valid through 2030?
Yeah, that's been purchased
That's been
and
purchased,
they're operating that,
okay.
and that's locked in.
Like same for same.
So then the other thing that I'm realizing is not on a PowerPoint that went out. is-
There are a couple, I got it.
Yeah, the squad 113 refurbished. So that we had in as year 2, which is the year we're
No.
planning for. So is that still a next year?
Yes, I mean, there's a whole long list of what needs to be refurbished, the truck generally meets our needs. It's holding up well, we've done some work to it. But they're saying like, it has the roll-up doors on the sides. All the gaskets are shot and the plastic lining on the inside of the slats, it's sandwiched in between, is torn out. It's all plastic and like saran wrap kind of thing. So water's getting into all the compartments. And that involves taking all the doors apart or taking the doors out. And that's an example of some of the things, you gotta look at. The piping is 20-something years old now, it's black iron pipe. And our history with what is now ED 213 is that black iron pipe, especially the ones with threads on both ends, kind of thing, close nipples and things like that, they corrode. Then you have a leak here, you have a leak there, and they, instead of replacing the plumbing one piece at a time, typically something 20 years old, you're gonna take one piece out, you take it all out. Fortunately, that's a rear mount pump, so 95% of the piping is just in the back of the truck. That'll be a discussion later for the.
We're gonna go into, we're gonna.
But yeah,
go into that in
that's
great
still a
detail.
valid thing, and typically if you're keeping a truck past 20-something years, you gotta put some money into it.
So a couple of the big things as we get into the discussion, I'm hoping to have that at our next meeting, we'll talk about future agendas later. I did send out what we have as the capture for the equipment status to both chiefs and, Troy over Public Works. You can validate and try to verify it, just to see, just to make sure we're getting it correctly, so that we can plan accordingly. But the other thing I asked them to start to consider, and you talked about it with the chassis replacement. Like, for example, we have in year 4 of the previously approved plan, we have, rescue 149 rather, excuse me.
That's
Up-
for
up
Wellington
forward.
Hill.
That's what I started, that's the hill, but.
Yeah,
larger
that's a
point.
big picture, yeah.
But the reality is that's a 2.5 year lead time in all likelihood. So I've asked the chiefs and Troy to kind of comment on what extensive lead times you're seeing. Because the reality is that that's really their anticipated replacement year. We need to be budgeting for it sooner.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that's been pushed off, like regularly because they've got that maintained, they've had that maintained for, so it's pushing 30 now, 30 years old, so it's quite a bit past replacement age. Because, and as I think you pointed out in your meeting, who was it? It was McCoo, I think, who said, that one goes on most calls in Wilmington. And it's heavily relied on, so it seemed to me that that's a great example of, they're predicting it, they keep, they've pushed it out before they've got it in a more realistic year now, but it's gonna be 30 by then, right?
Yeah.
When,
it's about
when
that.
that come, I mean, so it could go anytime, really.
And that's a massive expense, which we all have a shopping program for.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the whole discussion Stu is
Yeah,
bringing up. If
Yeah,
You
yeah,
put 100,000 down on an ambulance, which is, like, we can count on it for 5 years, it sounds like, or 5 to 7. That exhausts that fund for a bigger expense in a few years,
and then there's more.
rather than build it up more.
Um,
And I don't know if this is a place to bring it up, but to me, there's a couple of issues. One is, where it, and it kind of where, when you guys have that discussion about, does it belong in operating, does it belong in CIP and all that, but the whole idea, I don't think the second ambulance should be a definite move it into the plan until there's really a hard discussion about it, because that was purchased with ARPA money, which was not supposed to add to the spending of a town. Was not supposed to be something has a heavy sustainable expense going forward. There's a real question of whether a town of 5,500 can afford to operate 2 ambulances. To me, that's a big policy thing, and it's also a precedent thing that's of concern. And then the Fund 17 thing, that, as far as payroll goes, you guys have all been on Board of Finance, that in the biggest year, I think we applied 60,000 toward payroll just to do a catch up in the ambulance staff costs, because we had gone up to 4 full-timers from 2 full-timers. And, that cost was starting to kneecap us. I think I like that you guys want to track somewhere where, Fund 17 money is being spent. But if we sort of like policy wise said, it's going to kind of sit at 10 grand a year unless there's some unforeseen.
Honestly, and it was kind of the discussion on Monday, I'd love for the policy to be that goes away.
That goes away. I
You should
agree.
be dipping the Fund 17 payroll, if it's a Board of Finance action, it's not our action.
Yeah,
We just need to track the expenditure, but that is something, I'm hoping we can address, or you guys can address the Board of Finance, but whenever we have a chance to talk to the Board of Finance next, I think that's one of those.
And that's gone back and forth over many years, that when we first started with Fund 17 and the town receiving the ambulance billing, for probably 15 years, the town made money over and above payroll. But as hours of payroll.
those days are gone.
Well, hours of payroll, expanded, then, we cannot fund payroll based just on anyone's income.
And then there's that, and it's also because of the Medicare changes.
We haven't seen significant changes in that.
Well, yeah, we used to have tons of money that was made off of just taking people to appointments from Lions Manor.
No, they're all, we're actually prohibited by law. We cannot do routine transfers to anywhere except the
now.
hospital.
I know.
No, it's always been that way.
Um,
We've never had any income from doing routine transports to doctor's offices or anything like that.
But,
Okay, sorry.
no, that's fine, I just try to refocus and move
No,
this
go
through.
ahead.
The key point on that really is, I think what we're gonna find is the reality, there's a bigger equipment replacement need and cost than.
Right, and as it is in this plan,
Everything in Fund 17
we're not
is-
using Fund 17 for these other things, we're using the capital reserve. So.
Yep.
Because there isn't enough in Fund 17 to do, even
any of
in year 2.
Correct.
So. That's just.
Just one more point on the payroll side of things. Over the years, they didn't used to take any money out of it. Then they started the $10,000 thing to just kind of help things along. Then they had that 1 year at 60,000, and they got it back to 10. But some of the arguments, both at Board of Finance and CIP level over the years, is supplementing payroll is not a capital expenditure.
right,
It doesn't, it's not something, a physical thing you buy.
Right,
It's,
right.
You know, it's,
Yeah,
it's ours. So why is it even in here in the first place?
because we need to track the fund balances, really.
Oh, we
Because need to
we still
plan.
track, we still track the fund balances.
We do, but we need to understand how that's happening over time.
Yeah.
Is the reality of it. But yes, it's not, it's, like I said, it's not an action item here, but I do think, and I would like to push for Board of Finance to
Mhm.
stop practice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically,
it does.
as we get there, because the needs.
Because
have
capital,
changed.
and especially with the increase being described about the cost of vehicles, it's just, you know, it's not like vehicles are leveling out as far as expense. And you guys have longer waiting times, but the cost
The
too.
example being Tom's last engine that they bought, just, it's a nice truck, it's nothing horribly fancy. It was over $900,000.
Right.
They liked it enough that 2 years later, they wanted to buy another one. And I believe it was up to 1.2 million for just a regular fire truck. That's the inflation we're seeing. We're not seeing the, well, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And I think
Numbers.
The
Mike,
last expensive,
McCoo at the Board of Selectmen meeting said it was 12% a year or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right, so the equipment is,
New equipment
the
cost.
construction
so
market is
I don't think we
stabilizing
can
about
afford to
5%.
do payroll.
And then we're gonna get 12% for.
Yes, it's been that way for about 3 years now.
All right, I have one other item just to, on the fire departments before we move on to talking to Donna. So there is, it's not on this list because it was a prior year. There's, we mentioned it on Monday night, there's $110,000, in engineering, design and engineering at 25 Old Farms Road that Board of Finance has never appropriated. With the $200,000 sitting in there for the Emergency Services Facilities Committee, I'd love to free up that $110,000 back into the reserve fund. We can't make that motion. That is a Board of Finance decision. But I would like this committee to consider making a formal request.
What's the other 90,000 from?
What are the 90,000?
To make up the 200 grand that we gave to.
The emergencies,
EMS.
it was, I don't remember whether it was. what the
Because it
discussion
was-
There was
a
because-
transfer, but
Go ahead, Pete, you
Yeah,
know.
I believe that what we did was we took some money from the surveying and planning section there and moved it to the planning section of the whole system. So we went from planning for Willington Hill to planning for Willington Town.
Right, I understand that, and so the 110 was earmarked and that was catch-up money because,
You're right,
because more than that had been spent at Wellington One.
and to figure out how to fix that
So
station.
I understand that, and that's a reasonable move. That other 90,000 though, I think was supposed to be unspent engineering money from Wellington One. that
For
was-
their
And then
addition.
when we got underway with that being part of this move that Jim's talking about, which I don't mind doing, but I think we need
Well-
to say where is that and what's
We-
the status on that?
the way I recall that conversation, and I know the status on that actually, Donna's checking in on our final
Okay.
number, but that 85K is sitting around $75,000 right now. But that originally, it was 80K
Okay,
for Wellington, Fire Department One for that, or whatever that line item
it
specifically
was
said.
something,
It's off the
it was
plan
something
now,
with
we'll track these better
engineering
moving
and,
forward.
yeah,
When we had this whole discussion about the $200,000, it was originally a request for $100,000 for the Emergency Services Facilities Committee, I think, to get them going and give them professional assistance moving forward.
I think what we did
We
was we
tried to
wrapped up
transfer,
a
well,
number.
but we
It was
basically
to
said we
catch it
couldn't
up.
touch the 80,000 because that was
So
already
what we did was
allocated.
we wrapped up a number of different planning
Yeah.
funds. And that all came out to the 200 and then it all went to plan.
I guess I'm saying I think we should save the history because it was supposed to be catch-up money. Several hundred thousand had been spent at
Right,
the
and
other
now,
department.
but the problem is
You know.
we don't know if we wanna catch up right now.
Yeah, those projects are.
No, I know, it's a
So,
different
oh,
ballgame, I
boy.
totally get that, and I agree with all that. I'm just saying, sometimes you need to capture the history, just so you make sure you're being
That's
fair,
fair.
you know?
No, and nobody's saying that, yeah, I point taken,
Okay,
but
Is that committee gonna be submitting a request, like is your department head that for the
I've asked them, or
fire department?
I've asked them to join the fire departments for their presentation that's kind of a group discussion when the fire department,
I would, yeah.
because they are administering the capital aspect of that. So, and that's to my larger point, that $200,000, that committee is really should be, and
Looking out
and
for
to be the
everybody.
administrators of, not the word, administrators
Yeah,
of the capital engineering development, the forward motion of that, so. there's
I'm
100
assuming they will need that money once the plan comes back from the consultant in terms of what direction they're gonna go, so.
Well, that's why that's why we kind of rolled that into we went from 100 to $200,000 to the committee for that very
But
purpose.
most of it's likely to be unspent this year, but the
Yeah.
need will be there for next fiscal.
yeah,
year.
because we haven't done any of the sort of site
I
stuff.
really hate to interrupt on this, but this is a conversation best had with the people in the room. So, and we're an hour in, and I gotta go soon, so,
For further discussion, but I would like us to look at that and
right,
potentially put it up for a motion, just to formally request the Board of Finance, release that down the road. Because it is sitting there and we have need of the funds in the capital plan.
And the rest of the 90 is in our control to move.
The rest of the 90 is sitting with the fire department. That 90 for Wellington one, you guys allocated that, that's their fund.
We already did that.
We have nothing to do with that, that's it.
Okay. No, I meant, it's not a Board of Finance action
Oh, I don't,
that needs to happen with that.
I don't know. You
Okay.
tell me.
No, I'm not sure where, I'm not sure.
So
where.
we can't, so you guys have the 110,000 tied up, right? Because it was in the plan, so I don't know what the process for that is, but I think the motion may ultimately be like we'd ask Board of Finance to investigate it. And,
Yeah.
figure out what the process is,
Mhm.
potentially
Mhm.
transitioning those funds. Okay, Public Works. There are two big updates on that. We didn't get the TRIP grant for the Village Hill Road drainage and paving.
Oh,
But that is sitting here now in Village Hill and Schofield. So line items, what are they? 49 and 50, no, sorry.
Village Hill and then,
Was it 49 and 54? It was Village Hill and Schofield that you covered in your grant, right?
right,
Yeah. So
okay,
Village Hill and Schofield,
53,
yeah, so it's
49 and
49 and
53.
53. I've asked Troy, I had a conversation with him earlier today. He's going to, these two projects as they stand are gonna be dead filed. He is going to resubmit them as new so that we can align it with the grant that Pete has. Because the grant covers, as structured, covers Village Hill and Schofield. Liska would be a separate project.
is that the 2 million?
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
But we need to have the engineering done before they'll give us the 2 million, and the engineering has been estimated at 500,000.
And does
So-
it need to be done in this fiscal year or next fiscal year?
I'm not sure if we can move it out a year or not, probably. This urban grant that we got is quite flexible, I was surprised. But what we need is, part of the reason that it's so expensive is we're dealing with state roads, state waterways, and all kinds of issues going up. And this is more than $2 million project. So what we're gonna have to do is engineer it in sections so that we can pay for sections buy sections as we can pay for them.
Start at the bottom.
And start at the bottom and work our way up and then we have at least, it's like if you're putting in a sink, you probably wanna put in the drain before you put in the faucet. Because drains work fine without faucets, faucets not so much without drains,
Yeah.
so.
So people will be submitting that request and we will see that.
Yes.
in the area for these two projects.
Troy will be
Troy
submitting
will be
that.
submitting those requests.
Yeah. But unless it needs to be done before,
right.
like, if you have to do it now,
Right, we may have to move
then
it
if
from
this goes
someplace
straight
else
to
and
Board of
discuss it.
Finance, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
You can find that out, right?
Troy can find that out, I can ask Troy to find that out.
and I didn't
Yeah.
Half a
have,
fiscal year goes
He and
fast.
Heather, has got a much better grasp on some of this than I do.
That's good.
there's no fund match for that, right? Pete? We don't have to have funds committed to it?
No,
Perfect. So that's
No,
you know, as we, granted, the projects will cost more than the $2 million.
but coming down the line, and I don't know whether this is under Board of Selectmen or under Public Works. I am gonna be asking for $100,000 for, animal control. We're trying to regionalize to save a fair chunk of money in personnel and all kinds of issues. So we're working through CROG and NECOG and 5 towns and trying to figure this thing out. We spent an hour on the phone on a Teams meeting today and oof,
So,
there is
It's not under
complications.
their dominion, is it?
What?
Animal control, I mean, it is near their site, but it's not under public works.
It's not under Public Works, it's separate, but when it comes to construction, I like to have Troy involved. It's right next to them, they're gonna be able to do a lot of the site work before the construction starts to save us considerable money if we bring them in early.
So the plan would be to build the facility
here,
here.
Yeah, it started out in Tallinn, now that it's looking more and more like here.
so the 100,000 for
The cope with the, whatever it is.
our percentage of.
Our percentage of the steep grant, our, what is that, the, you know, the matching. You have to come up with 20%,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
for steep grants.
Oh,
on the same site?
Yeah, because we're gonna have to build out a lot. I think we've got 8 runs now, and I think they're talking minimum 14. We need, cat facilities, we need a new outdoor run. And it looks like it might be the headquarters for the regional animal control, which I'm hoping will come under somebody else.
Mhm.
But,
well, everybody will end up paying it.
Everybody will end up
Like a
paying,
probate
but-
court,
yeah,
how that went.
yeah. But
Which
what we
is-
do now is we pay, and we just pay a fund right now, because we don't have an animal control officer.
Who's gonna, is there any engineering related to that, or is that?
Yes, CROG is actually running the engineering for that. And they've got all kinds of people on, they're doing all the pre-engineering for us with state money.
Are we anticipating any costs, so with state money, we're not anticipating.
We're not anticipating state money on planning, but there's also another program that if you put together regionalize your animal control officers, CROG pays 50% of the first 3 years of your salaries. So,
Wow.
yeah, and so we're trying to figure that out too. I'm trying to get as much state money as possible.
Pete, you think that would happen somewhere over on that same site? Cause that sounds like a big expansion.
Yes,
Okay,
I was out there today with Troy looking around, and there, a fair amount of material will have to be moved, but they're already moving stuff there for another project, so it works out. We already own the equipment and the workers.
Eastern Highland might wanna know about it.
Yeah, well, instead of,
I know.
we're not gonna collapse the facility.
We are gonna need to look at the operating budget for that though, cause
Mhm.
there's no way it's gonna be less money than what it was.
Yeah.
Even with regionalizing,
Mhm.
because the way it was is that we had a part-time person that wasn't getting benefits.
Mhm.
And now it's definitely gonna cost more, but
Was
Well,
that one of the
also there's a-
salaries you increased on Monday night?
no,
No, okay,
no,
we don't have an employee.
okay.
not anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. Just have to look at that.
Yeah. It's just that, you know, I think with the 5 towns, right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, mostly full-time animal control officers and about 6 or 8 part-timers. And if they regionalize, they can get rid of like half the part-timers.
Mhm.
And then the full-timers, it'll cut down on overtime because they can schedule, so if you have one person 24/7, you end up with a lot of overtime.
Mhm.
If you have 3 people covering shifts, then not so much.
Right.
So there's where that savings is there. And then instead of every town owning a vehicle, you just need 3 or 4 vehicles instead of 5 vehicles.
Yeah.
And then for the running of the facility, even. I would much rather have this facility in somebody else's town, so I don't have to worry about it. But other towns keep telling me, no, you want it. We want it in our town, but we can't have it because, you know, if you look at the map, it's a circle and our current animal control is right in the middle of the circle.
Mhm.
And they,
Maybe
They're-
you can charge them rent or like.
oh yeah, no, that,
get a
absolutely, yeah,
discount, get a
Yeah.
discount.
Get it,
yeah, that's,
yeah, or
That's
get
what-
fee,
A hosting
get
fee.
fees.
yeah.
You know, are we, how are they doing the shares of paying for
We
it?
don't know that, these
Don't
are
know that
all,
yet.
all,
Okay.
all
And also,
details that are being worked out.
and also not relevant to what we're gonna pay for.
That's
You guys.
Maybe.
Wait a minute.
Your other job, the Board of Finance, that's where that comes in. It's not a capital
I'm the
expense.
representative from the board of finance, so
There you go.
I get to ask.
Pete, the stormwater chamber at Public Works,
Yeah, that's been in the works for a long, long time. What happens is that the parking lots, particularly at public works stations, have oils and stuff that rinse into the stormwater
Yeah.
that dump into the streams, and they wanna stop that.
yeah, Donna says they have the money in LoSiP for it, we have the money in LoSiP and budgeted for it, are they planning on it to, okay.
I've
So hopefully that'll
completed
be
like
completed this
15
year.
projects,
Yeah,
and
hopefully, 'cause-
I peck away at them one at a
It's
time, and
approved, so
hopefully
it's-
finish some of them.
So you're going after a steep grant for this animal control,
Yes,
is that,
it's a
Does that-
multi-town and steep
does
grant,
that limit our ability to get a steep grant?
probably.
Okay, so then,
But
The
right now,
possible
we're
steep-
completely limited because we didn't pay off the last steep, we spent the last steep grant, I'm trying to close that one out, so we are eligible for one.
so to just follow up on that discussion too, the 300, I'm sorry, I'm back up on the salt shed line 50.
Okay.
Yeah,
We last year reduced that $1 million project to 350,000, basically saying that we didn't, there was no way we were gonna be able to do it unless it came through
ski,
Money.
as leftover money from a prior project, not
Yeah.
a steep grant. That's, Pete thinks that's gone. So,
it's, we gotta push it out. Like a lot of things, we gotta push it out. I would love to have a brand new salt shed, but we've gotta move it from where it is.
so that old carryover funds from the speed grant is not gonna happen for that project.
Right.
So I'm sure Troy will refresh that project submission, and that'll be a big discussion point, and we don't have a grant capability to pay for it, so.
And the reason you said we'd have to move it is because it's environmentally not the right
Mhm.
spot. Thanks.
Any other questions on Public Works, years 1 and 2 of this plan?
Probably, but that's a good spot to move on.
Yeah. And we'll go through those in more detail, as their own meeting before us.
Towards an idea.
No. So library, we have the bond payment wrapping up. I guess 2 years from now is the last payment. For what that gives us back to, or reduces the,
Tree, right? Is it?
yeah, it's year 3 of this plan, so it's our year 2 now.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's.
Problem is $160,000 used to be real money.
Yeah, it's not, that's for what it's, for what it gets us.
Yeah,
But it reduces the recurring payment, which is always nice. That $80,000 this year for the building envelope that the library has in line 61.
Right.
I'm
What is
not
that?
sure it's coming out of LoSiP or not, to be honest with
What
you.
is that?
that is,
Yet to be issued RFP about the library.
yeah, it was supposed to come out of those, so they haven't done it yet.
They haven't even issued the RFP, right? It's a little.
No, so I did get clarification, the RFP that they sent out, it did include that. What they asked ARPA for was just one piece of it, so I think they did gutters, envelope, and, retaining walls.
Yeah,
So ARPA's taking care of the retaining wall part, which was 25,000.
something like that.
I asked them to send me the rest of it, the actual, no, just the RFP, so we would understand what the pricing might be.
Did they only had quoted the 25,000 that ARPA covers only for the retaining walls?
Yes.
So they only have pricing for the retaining walls, because the quote as written says to cover all of the services.
Oh, it didn't do it à la carte?
No, the way it was worded will cover everything in the RFP.
I don't know, I'll tell you what they said.
So, well, we don't need to
Yeah, it
belabor the
doesn't
point
matter,
now.
but,
Karen.
they're gonna need money to do all of the projects, so.
Because there's no way they got.
We'll see what they submit for. But the fact is, they got money to do this, the envelope this year, and that also is not done.
So wait, do they do the gutters?
No,
Okay, so do they have funds for that?
no, we put funds in that,
Was that in?
Oh, no,
That was
I'm
included
sorry.
in line 61, wasn't it?
sorry, yeah, so line 60, the gutters, at the time they were asking ARPA, and ARPA said no.
So we're gonna need to,
So,
that's probably gonna be a request before us for 62K or something like that.
yeah, but that was a very
Yeah.
made up number.
Okay.
But they hadn't talked to an engineer yet, so
So it's. good.
hopefully it's less.
They seemed very confused on the process when we were working with them.
Yeah, and that's something.
Yeah.
But I understood that was like job one of everything they were trying to do.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
Don't they have
It's like
80,000
water
in
pouring
this
down on the
fiscal year?
They
entryway
have
and heavy
80,000
rains.
captured in those, yeah, or.
So in theory, they don't have to
Not
come
good
back
for a
next year to
public
actually
library,
say
that's
money.
books.
If it covers $80,000.
Yeah.
yes. If any more of the gutters are coming.
in theory,
But the project hasn't been done yet, so that may just be one we track and it says.
yeah, and
Okay,
we
The
don't.
rest of those, we'll let them resubmit. We don't need to belabor the library.
Okay.
And ARPA also said no to the exterior paint. Because that was in year 4, it was too late. They need to spend the money before that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah, the article well is dry. Moving forward,
there's nothing left in ARPA.
so, anything that didn't get accomplished may show up moving forward.
so did we move money to the schools for the playground thing?
Yeah, yep, the playground, which was not even on here, but,
If only the car, but
yeah, because I don't.
Okay,
Yeah, there was a change in ARPA where we had to have everything under contract,
I know.
and anything we didn't have under contract went back to whoever. We made sure everything was under contract.
Going to selectmen.
Selectmen, that facility study, that fund, you guys, I believe, you spent them on building repairs, right?
No, turns out that the money I spent on building repairs was ARPA money, unless this is ARPA money here.
No,
No,
this is
And,
different.
and so it says current $30,000, but then it says $0 under year 1. So I don't know if that was $30,000 that was previously in the plan
I'm sure.
in previous years, and I wasn't even aware that it was there, so I didn't spend it.
Well, that's,
Wait, you still got half a year. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
This,
there's
I think this went in before I became first selectman.
no, there's something screwy about this because.
yeah, there is.
It's it's the same line item, Pete. I think we zeroed it out because it was transferred to ARPA.
All right,
ARPA,
Yeah, I think the note is wrong.
the note is wrong, the number is right. ARPA, so you spent ARPA's money.
I spent ARPA's money
There's no
on
funding
fixing
anywhere.
buildings and,
There is no funding for
all right,
a municipal building
right.
study at this point in time. That is something, I don't know if the selectmen will request. I know it's probably,
This is something that's still under discussion and it's being discussed every meeting.
so that is a closed done deal that will come off the list. Pending somebody wanting to request or this committee desiring to capture funds for it. Your floors, we gotta get that done this year, Pete?
That's this year's funding.
Correct.
So, yeah, when I get the money out, I will.
It's coming out of your budget, so good. There we go.
And here it says it's now year 2.
It's now year 2,
So
which
it'll be
is,
next fiscal year you get the money.
yeah, next fiscal year. I won't get the money till after July, so
And that's,
after I get the money, I'll.
that's assuming it goes through all the approvals.
Right,
for this fiscal
Right.
year.
And the building security was completed, this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the little,
Uh,
yeah,
Um,
green lightning bolt or whatever. it
Yep.
is.
And if it's green, that means you can get through it. If it's red, that means it's, you're not getting through it.
yeah, I'm sure I'll mess that up the first time I try another one.
Did they tell you
Evaluation.
about the one swipe, two swipe thing?
Oh, no, you can fill me in on that.
Okay.
Thanks. Um,
Start banking for revaluation.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're banking for the assessor. We're spreading it out over 5 years rather than a single year hit. Replenish open space funds, that was discussed on Monday night, but, that goes up to 30,000. We reduced it 5,000 during the budget reductions on that year.
Yeah,
And I believe they'll probably submit the same request. Land use regularly,
That
So
was
they-
that was ARPA funded too.
so, what I don't know is,
Records.
Yeah.
funding for plan conservation and
Oh, yeah.
development will probably need to come up and be captured. I don't know if Mike's planning on submitting that this year, but that is probably a decent, I don't know what, do you guys know how much
Oh,
that costs?
gosh.
what is that?
The
Development of the
POCD,
plan of conservation and development,
Oh my
it's
gosh,
coming up in like 2 years,
it's not,
3 years maybe.
it's more than $1.
Yeah, it's
It's probably in the $100,000 range.
that's
yeah,
kind of what I
that's what
thought.
I think it is, cause it's supposed to be a, you know, an outside impartial,
Yeah.
convener, you know, and
Um,
moderator.
so we may want, as something to just track if it's not submitted, I'll try to remember if somebody.
What year does it need to be done?
27, 28, I think.
Okay.
We'll look at it later. It's
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
up within 2 or 3 years, and I
Yeah,
don't
so
know
we
how
need,
long that
definitely need
process
to
is.
shock absorb for that.
I'm trying to make that term die, to determine to use it.
We don't have reference to the P O C D.
Huh?
We don't have to the plan of conservation.
No, we
It's
didn't
not
have
in
that.
here.
No, we
No,
didn't
no,
have
no,
that. It's not on the radar.
It hasn't been requested.
Correct.
But it
So
should.
it's up
We
to,
will-
so it's up to the land use department head to submit that request.
So I know Mike does have it on his radar, it's come up in discussions, or at least I've heard it in town discussions, so be prepared for it. Also, oh my God, I feel so bad, I'm blanking on the name. The senior center is gonna have some requests coming in.
Yep,
I had a discussion with,
Karen,
humans, I'm sorry,
Karen,
thank you. Yeah, so she is helping the senior center come along with, they've approached her with a number of projects they're hoping to submit requests for, which is good. I'm hoping it's a result of that survey that went out. They were included, Karen was included in the outreach today, so she's aware of it. I spoke with her last week. This is her first time using the portal, so we opened up portal for submission, so I'll try to give her whatever assistance she needs as she gets in there. I don't think they're gonna have detailed. Well, she doesn't know what information they have on whatever projects they need. So we'll see what happens, but there are gonna be a number of requests for the senior center anticipated this year, just so everybody has a heads up.
Mhm.
I heard you back.
Things like replacing windows or.
I
air
believe
conditioning
it's,
units.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
video surveillance for security. They've got a bunch of handicapped people over there, but no handicap doors on the restrooms,
Oh,
stuff like that.
that shouldn't be too.
It shouldn't be too bad, no, the total list didn't look overwhelming to me, but they thought they could just come to see me and I'd give them a check. And I told them that wasn't quite how it worked.
No, no.
I told them that first start with their department head instead of skipping over like 15 steps first.
So like we've had in the past, I think there's gonna be a little bit of a learning curve
Mhm.
going into those requests that we'll have to try to assist with.
They used to, it's just when people leave,
Yeah.
because they used to have routine,
Right.
tasks, and painting was one of them.
Mhm.
They've had a big turnover in their structure, their governance.
This is a senior center, not the senior housing.
Senior center, yeah.
The senior housing is sort of more privately driven, like if they
Yeah.
have water issues or this or that, that's kind of their.
Oh,
Well,
speaking of water issues in the senior center,
yeah,
you had questions on the pipeline.
yeah,
I talked to Troy about that today. He says it's, as far as water systems go, we are really new. And that the system that they have, because we don't have a lot of takeoffs on it,
mhm,
shouldn't have any problems for about the next 40 or 50 years. And if we do get a rupture, we've got a plan in place to get it fixed, but
Mhm.
replacing the whole system should be.
but what about cleaning the holding tank? Cause I know. I don't know where that
For the
was-
septic?
No, for the water,
Oh, I don't know, but
Because that was like one of the
we do
stations-
have a contract on that to get it fixed.
yeah,
And we've been, that's part of the water bill that we send them,
yeah.
and
We
we
built
got
in
that.
like a 10% or something.
Well,
to-
the problem we had was the septic system, we had no contract on,
Mhm.
and when the pumps died, it just backed up into the senior center, and that was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was a bad couple days.
Well, thanks for looking into that.
I
Yeah.
stood at a
Yeah, that's
distance.
So I'm gonna count that as no request is good. So the only thing I had to ask you, Pete, I don't know if Parks and Rec was gonna come in with anything with Pete, Old Town Hall.
We don't even have a Parks and Rec director right now, but they just finished a very large project under ARPA, so that's,
Those lights are
Right.
serious.
Yeah,
I,
you can
Yeah.
play pickleball at
I
night.
came off the highway and thought, what am I looking at? What is that?
daylight. Sun's
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah.
As a bit of tribute, do you do anything like Old Town Hall or do you?
The Old Town
Boy
Hall-
Scout building or any big requests that didn't get,
Not that I know of right now, the Old Town Hall, we've got to finish, we've got some contracts that are signed, the money's there, we're waiting for it to be warm enough so the paint doesn't freeze in the can, that kind of stuff. I think we're waiting on weather on that, and so until we finish the repairs that we've got contracted, it's hard to evaluate where we are.
it's not, yeah, I mean, it's ongoing, we just.
Yeah.
Planning for me.
But as far as maintaining, those historic windows and stuff, we're caught up with that, right?
We're under contract for that.
Yeah.
And I think we have one piece of glass that's not exactly historic, it's not weighty enough, it's too clear.
Yeah,
But other than that, I think we are looking at replacing a lot of other glass historically accurate.
Can I ask you something? We may have discussed this, and I'm sorry if I don't know, but what's the difficulty in getting internet out there? And the ability for town meetings?
For town meetings, I'm working on a project, we have most of the equipment.
Yeah,
I just have to get the IT guys out there so that we can record meetings like this.
Yeah.
But then you record it to a computer hard drive and then bring it back and upload it. We could probably get,
I was just wondering, like, it's something that I know there's.
I'm trying to get internet to this building first. That's a project that I'm currently working on.
Pete, can I just ask you a question about
Sure.
this? Cause I don't know how old, we're under state statute, we don't have a charter, so is the definition of town meeting held in the old town hall that you can't Zoom in the historic building because it's like, do we have to have a town
I
ordinance
had a
about this or
long conversation on this with Christine, Pathis.
Sathis?
Sathis.
Silent P.
I keep wanting to put the P in there, written down, about the purpose of town meeting and the history of it and.
And what
how
today
involved
is.
she in history.
Yeah,
And we had some citizens complaining that they couldn't,
Zoom in.
vote early, Zoom in, et cetera, and the historic meaning of town meeting is to meet with your fellow citizens and to persuade them and to find out the issues, and that's why we don't have 15-day early voting on town meeting. It's because you haven't heard the arguments of your fellow citizens yet. It'd be like with Congress, I'm gonna vote on this before we discuss it. Nah, you gotta discuss it first, so. That's that's why town meeting you have to go.
Oh, interesting. I wasn't thinking of it for early voting. I was thinking of it, is it partially that we want to retain this
Yes.
historic building that we haven't
No, I don't think it's, we wanna
outfitted it,
restore the
and how do we
historic,
feel about Zoom? You know, 'cause you have to show
Right.
your ID.
Right.
Anyone can zoom
Right.
in,
right,
so.
so there's that part of it for voting. If somebody calls for a paper ballot, then you have to, and you have to be able to challenge somebody's residence. So that would be a real problem on Zoom. The other thing is that's not that it's a historic building, but that the process is historic.
Yes,
The town meeting process
okay,
itself.
gotcha.
It doesn't have to do with the building. So what I wanna
It doesn't have
do,
to be in that building.
it doesn't have to be in that building, but it has to be that
But it
process.
would still have the same process.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
good
that's
answer.
why we don't zoom the town meeting. But I do think we can record it and put it out afterwards,
Yeah,
that,
so that people
that's-
could see what the discussion was.
and that's what I'm aiming for.
you could live stream it, you could zoom it, but people wouldn't be able to,
They wouldn't be able to
Comment.
discuss, comment, or
Yeah.
vote, or,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm sure we could set up a hotspot and do it, and right now I'm just trying to get it so we record better, because, I know Nicole's having a real problem getting the meeting minutes off of the recorder, because the sound quality of that bill,
Yeah.
it's not exactly the tabernacle, you know, the
Mormon
Mormon
Tabernacle,
tabernacle with the perfect acoustics.
no sound equipment in that thing, the original one anyway.
Yeah,
So that is our precursor
Right.
to where we stand, unless anybody has any other questions on it.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
So
That was good.
we will, update this, or begin to update this to get ready for next year. So moving on, board and department head presentation, schedule discussion. You guys have in your packets, kind of an outline for, we approved the schedule at our last meeting. This was my first pass, at identifying, kind of outlining a sequence for the various departments to come in and debate. I've included and read some critical, reference points. They're not really, they're not our meeting. That January 7th date of yesterday actually turned out to be the day. We opened the portal submission, well, it was open yesterday, but we made the announcement today. We're in the process of our meeting on the 8th now. I'd like to, I'm working towards hopefully doing over an equipment inventory and replacement schedule review and some general precursor big picture planning discussions and strategies.
On the 15th.
At our next meeting next week, we'll see how far I get with that, and what we wanna do. But just to start to brainstorm, how we start to approach,
So,
the big picture. Yeah, so this is part of my next question, the 16th. You guys have a meeting on the 16th, correct, Board of Finance?
yeah,
So similar to what, I guess it doesn't have to be the 16th, but it would be convenient, similar to what just happened at the Board of Selectmen. I'm hoping to engage, like, Board of Selectmen has been engaged, it was a productive discussion. I am hoping that we can do something similar with the Board of Finance, where we can just come in and say, hey, look, this is where we stand, here are some of the issues we see, just start the dialogue. With the understanding that we're not gonna have any definitive answers, just the season is opening, but just to at least engage the conversation. So that it's in a forefront, kind of educate what projects are in the plan now, what some of the big picture things may be, that we anticipate coming out.
Yeah, and give them a schedule,
And give them,
because I guess one of my questions is, when we did the presentation before, it was more at the end of the CIP process, right?
Yeah, well,
Before
that'll
in the
be,
budget so you'll go. we'll
yeah,
go
that'll be a
back
presentation, that, we have that in here
in
somewhere, I
here.
think. we
Yeah,
put
probably
that
late.
On the,
Yeah,
there it is, the
19th,
20th.
20th, yeah.
March
Yeah.
20th,
March
so, but that's
20th, okay.
really after the plan's been completed, and I
Yeah.
guess the point being
Okay,
that
yeah,
we're gonna have some big funding discussions,
Yeah, I
and there's
think it
gotta be a
makes sense.
strategy to it, quite frankly, it's not gonna matter too much what we have in the plan if
okay,
we're not engaging the Board of Finance, and the Board of Selectmen are engaging in the discussion to try to reach some plan, even it's not gonna be a perfect one. But start to discuss strategies and start to understand the overarching picture, so I'd like to do that before everything's kind of been discussed.
And
to say,
really,
hey, this is
just
where we're
as
at.
basic as reminding everyone of what the process is,
Yeah.
and because it's so fast, it happens so fast. And
Yeah.
I think that's great.
we're gonna tell them.
So if you guys are comfortable with that, I'm gonna reach out to Bruce, and request to be just put on the agenda for maybe a 15, 20 minute, yeah, thing here, we're here, this is, our process is starting. Please be engaged, so it's there.
Makes perfect sense to me.
I've got to leave, but I think you still have a quorum, so.
No, 5 is quorum, I
Do
think.
we have to, do we have to vote on anything now?
Well, I actually was thinking about a motion for the next one.
All right, well,
Okay.
let's motion then.
So, yeah, so moving on, if you guys have, before we move off of that, any questions on the schedule?
No.
I brought up the big guns up front, basically, to update Board of Ed, Public Works, and the fire departments as the first 3 meetings following submissions.
I just see the Board of Selectmen presentation, I think that's the wrong date. It says February 20, it's March something. Give February 27th and twice.
No, my apologies. You're right, I do. That might be March 5th, and I copied it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, March 5th.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Wait,
No,
it says
it's not.
BOE and then BOS. You got both,
I'll have to,
both,
we'll figure
What,
this
you
out.
wanted
after
March
Pete. I wanna
I
get
think
us-
it's February 30th. No, that's not
No,
real.
it's not
That's
real.
not real. That's not real. That's
February 30th, they're making it.
It's a reference point, I will,
even the 29th only happens four
Every year, yeah.
years, yeah.
if you guys can check that date,
What's that?
Board of Selectmen is coming before you, the Board of
I
Finance,
think
just
it's,
let me
I
know.
think it's March 6th.
I have it written down, I might have just transferred around.
Yeah,
For the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
that's March 6th.
So the idea being that, and then we have a big cluster of. Ideally, we're freeing up meetings later on to both have discussion and, for the opportunity for some of the bigger, for follow-up. Because we're gonna have questions, we always do. So there should be room in the schedule still if we hit the target for the submission date. To have people back in with questions.
Might include, the town presentations or whatever, the budget hearing, just because CIP is a part of that.
Yeah, this is just internal,
Oh,
we're
this is
done,
internal.
we
Okay.
gotta get this, we've already posted the schedule, this is just,
Okay.
I'm letting you
Okay.
guys previews of what I've asked the department heads to target
To
for their
do.
presentations, so
Thank
we're not moving on that. And if you have any comments or conflicts, let me know, I've asked them if they have any conflicts, and it may adjust as it always does.
Okay.
So facilities manager discussion, I added this, and I mentioned it earlier, it's been brought up by Clark, Matt, numerous occasions, it's being actively discussed. The Board of Ed recently has funding in their budget this year for their own facilities manager. But it is gaining some traction, or at least the awareness of it. And I've been advocating for this for a while, I think it's a very positive discussion, I think it would do light years in helping this committee in and of itself, let alone the town, start to understand the big picture capital needs. It's not something we're gonna go and hire, but I think it's something that would really, impact and do this committee, so. To get to Pete's point, so we can really further discussion, I wanna make a motion that this committee recommends to the Board of Selectmen, that they consider and pursue, engaging a facilities manager position for the town of Wellington. And incorporate budgeting for it in their budget process this year. If you guys want to entertain that for discussion,
I'll second it for discussion. Can we discuss?
absolutely.
Okay, is that a combo with the Board of Ed idea? Because
That is,
originally the Board of Ed reached out to Pete, I know, and said, well, not the board, but the
Yeah.
superintendent. And said he was more than willing to collaborate with one position, and that it may not, be a full-time forever, but certainly for our needs now.
I don't know where Bill stands on that and Board of Ed stands on that. I know they're talking
But it
to
does
Ashford of
kinda
potentially
make sense.
consolidating it.
Yeah.
With that said, I
mean,
think it's
to
important
be
for the
from-
town and I know Matt's perspective and his discussions like the library, you know, but these are volunteer organizations and like
Exactly.
senior center library.
Exactly.
They don't know how to really pursue it. And we honestly we're not able to be the eyes and ears for these buildings on a daily basis. We're just having needs, so.
And honestly too, you know this, you know, everyone knows this, it's harder. There's more to it now.
Absolutely, but how it happens is really with then Paul at Pete's lab, but I think that this would really be, my expectation is this is really a town position. You know, to handle all town buildings. If it's up to Phil and.
What do you think, Pete?
I think there's a complication in that the state has built a wall between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education. And so the education buildings are really a Board of Education problem. So with that wall, having a one facilities manager for both may provide difficulties, it may not. So, my feeling on this matter right now is I'm gonna abstain on this vote.
But do you know of communities where where they have collaborative
I don't,
facilities manager now?
I don't, in fact, I haven't even talked to communities that have facilities managers because right now where we pay for one is problematic. I know we set aside essentially the first selectman's salary to hire a
Town
facilities manager, and it didn't come close. So
Yeah,
what we're doing is we're, you know, if essentially what we're looking at is another superintendent of school salary to fund this thing, and I don't know where it is.
and.
That's part of my, if we had endless funding, I would be fully in favor of it, but.
I think when the Board of Finance went for the Board of Ed's proposal for a facilities manager, we had a lot of evidence to believe that there would be economies of, not of scale necessarily, but of, you know, prowess or knowledge that would pay off for the town.
Oh, yeah.
Having a professional in that role for such big projects.
I mean, you
So-
have to split the salary like you've been doing with like the building officials and such of, you know, 3 days a week to the schools, 2 days a week to the other town.
If that's possible, but whether there's, you know, I think the municipal properties in town all have this bill. You know,
Issues.
the ability to get an understanding, I think that position would benefit the town. They have a tendency to pay back in dividends, just in maintaining upkeep, identifying issues before they're really expensive issues. They can help solicit bids, get us better information and due diligence so that the town has a way of planning for what we're doing. And I can't say mechanics, but I think from my perspective for this board, it's an easy, to me, it's an easy recommendation to say it would be beneficial and we'd recommend.
Yeah, I mean, the only other
So you guys are gonna advance it.
problem I have is that, you know, identifying problems is easy. No, not easy. It takes a professional
Planning for them.
planning for
It's
them,
hard.
doing that, then finding the funding to do the plan is
Well,
the
not only
secondary
that,
project.
we have a lot of quirky quasi private, public, you know, setups in town. You know, the firehouses, I mean, they're not,
The fire-
right now, they're not town-owned
Right.
buildings. So
You
there's
want 'em,
that.
you can have 'em.
No, that's okay, we already know.
But-
The buyer can beware there.
Actually, I think that may be in our future, only because you can't get state funding unless the building is owned by the
No,
town.
and obviously, if we're
Yeah.
bonding a big project, then it becomes a town building. But it's not now, is what I'm saying.
Right,
And we bonded the library, but even that is, you know, got
So now
little
it's town
strings
building,
attached,
yeah.
right?
But we
So,
pay for its upkeep. You know, so
yeah,
it's.
I know.
I think,
It becomes-
I think when you go through, back to the historic record, it was supposed to pay for its own upkeep somehow, but I don't know how.
No, it's in the firehouse agreement is that they look out for their own building.
Yeah, I think that was the same for the library.
Was it?
When it was built, yes, they had a fund to do that from, and they haven't touched their own money yet,
Right.
as far as I know, that's what I keep getting told.
That reminds me of something else I wanted to bring up.
Is it?
Oh, Candle Rock, that's the other thing that's gonna be coming up, I'm sorry.
What is?
Candle Rock, we've been pushing it off long enough that it is now a year one project because the federal,
It's that piece of land.
it's the old wagon shed property off of 44.
Contaminated.
It's contaminated, the major contamination was cleaned up by the federal, EPA.
Yeah, right, like the brownfield
Yes,
program.
but they didn't do it for free. They did it and put a lien on the property, and now the lien is coming due, and when we seized the property from the Cadle Rock Corporation, we also seized the lien. So I'm working with Catherine Silversmith to figure out if we can, for legal fees, go to the government on bended knee and ask them to forgive the loan, or we are dead meat, but we have to do that like ASAP.
How much is it?
How much is the lien?
Yeah,
Yeah, more than we have.
what capital will? I guess what.
We need to know.
What we need to do is we need to come up with $20,000 worth of legal fees, that's what we need.
Okay, well, that's your decision.
And then,
Yeah.
but what brought that up was facilities and that don't pay for themselves. Mansfield built a town center, town recreation facility that was supposed to more than pay for itself and cost them several million a year. And one of the ideas from Ashford was to build a community center on the Cadle Rock property, and I'm going, Jesus, no.
What is it called again?
Cadle Rock,
Cadle.
CADLE Rock,
Okay, thanks.
Georilla.
Yeah, that whole thing started when Erica was.
Oh, is there?
Well,
Well,
No.
it was 20 years before that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
we've
this
been-
is
we've
an
had
old
it done.
brownfield.
Yeah.
No,
I know it's full brand, but I thought
Way
we,
before me.
I thought we inherited it fairly recently and had to deal with it.
No, it's gone through multiple levels of lawsuits.
tax seizures and all kinds of crap.
Yeah.
Well, at any rate, just to go back and recap the motion that's on the table. No.
Can we move the question, because I really gotta go.
I just have one comment. The facilities director thing has been discussed, I'm thinking for at least 12 years, through multiple selectmen, and for the same reasons. And it, like, most of what, it does kick the can down the road, we'll talk about it next year. The need is still there for this, and to expect the superintendent to be an expert in the septic system, or, be figuring out what's wrong with the water.
Absolutely.
It's not in their skill set, no offense to anybody, but it needs to be done. And we need somebody to kind of keep an eye out for these, and yes, it would help our planning purposes of, when you need to do
I got it.
meeting and stuff.
All right. Pete, walk
So you
running
like
at the start.
Dude, you like it.
Yes.
So we'll find out. Any further discussion now?
No.
All right, guys, let's move to a vote. All in
Yes.
favor?
I,
Night.
And,
I abstain.
all right.
See you all later. I'll lock the door on the way out.
Oh, can I go up there? I parked it there.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
If,
I'm gonna ask, somebody knows what happens on the way out again, this will be my first time leaving. If, without Donna.
don't worry, you set the alarm, you hit command, and it says, you wanna set the alarm, and you hit yes. And then you have like
Yes.
45 seconds to get out.
All right, we'll do that
Yes, you can go
together.
out through the top.
Okay, just go.
Thanks.
And, to double it, when you, if you open the place, you run your fob twice, and it'll go to green and stay green, so other people can follow you in. And to go out, to turn it, relock it, you just put your fob twice, it'll go to red, and then it locks the building. To set the alarm, all you have to do is hit command, and then it says, do you wanna set the alarm, you hit yes.
All right, thank you, Pete.
Good night, Pete.
If you get it all, we'll find out. All right, well, thanks, everybody. All business, we have committee goals and priorities. I didn't get any feedback from any of y'all. We can pick this until we have a bigger group next week, because it's running late now. It's something I just wanna keep on there as we discuss it. We talked about a number last time, so we're capturing the minutes. But I, you know, I have ideas. I don't wanna be the only driver. This is, you know, I don't wanna be the only one with aspirations. So that's my plea. If you guys have thoughts, you wanna accomplish something here, let me know. And then outreach efforts,
What's that?
we talked about, kind of a working group with Jen, and nothing's happened because I only got access to email and the ability to outreach, as of Monday. So part of that discussion was really getting before the Board of Finance, and we talked about that. So that's one of the initial things. And Christina brought up, if you guys are amenable to it, Christina brought up, the ability to send out just an update letter, that can be posted on the town website saying CIP committee, you know, factual, basically saying CIP committee is starting our season. Meetings are this, yada, 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 just a general update saying, come to the meetings, be engaged.
Is there anything on the website in terms of like the charge of the committee?
It's,
Yeah,
yes.
that's outdated too.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not something we're gonna address during budget season.
Yeah.
So, but it is something I wanna kind of codify a little bit better.
Yeah. And
over the month.
that, like if there's new appointments to the committee, they'll update Tish does that. And she'll put in whatever you want her to say, pretty much.
Yeah.
But,
So the guidance is, I mean, the status of the committee is in our annual report. There's a lot of actually detail even on the process of the committee and what we're responsible for, what the Board of Finance is responsible for. So that's always worth a refresh, and we can read that sometime down the line. And then there's a brief description that I had asked for the charge, and Robin sent me what's basically on our website. It's also in the CIP plan every year.
yeah,
There were formal motions made where you were
well.
years ago about what the membership and makeup of the committee is.
Mhm.
Beyond that, but that's what we have, so it's something we should refresh.
Yeah,
But really for outreach, I just wanna be able to get to continue, I mean, I just took a look. We're actually getting over 200 views on our YouTube of our last meeting.
really?
Yeah, it was a meeting before that, so there is attention. And my hope is to continue to garner that, because we're not gonna get anywhere unless we have a community, you know, that's willing to engage in the discussion. And we'll take it from there, but more to come on that. You had something?
Oh, yeah, one of the things that I thought of today was, it would be good to do a review of the funds. That, like,
Rather we have done
yeah, oh, yeah, no, yeah, like have Donna and maybe even have more detail than what we have here. Just.
Yeah.
To make it easy for people to understand. I don't know, I've struggled with that, how to. It's so much information, how do you condense it into something that everyone can look at and go, oh yeah, that makes sense? It's like, it's impossible.
I mean, so I have thoughts on this, because I
Spreadsheets
develop
are.
these, well, but I do have experience in developing this, and it's always complex, it's not, you know, it's not gonna be.
Yeah,
But I think, to my big point, I think understanding what the balance is, what the relationship to need is.
Yeah.
Understanding the need and then projecting what decisions or what strategies, how that impacts the total budgetary picture. So I think we can lay that out and then gradually develop it, but
yeah,
yes, we need to,
well, and it's like, I'm just thinking of the capital fund. there's money in there, but it's almost all earmarked, right? There's, for specific projects.
Well,
It's tied up and so it's not, and like the Board of Ed.
Right, I
fund
mean-
now, that money is not, it is, all of it's tied up for, but it's not specifically
Correct.
allocated yet. So, and,
Because the page that, this one here that has 5 different funds on it, to me, it's very helpful and it's laid out well. But it only encompasses about half the funds that are listed on this sheet. There's fund, 504, a 311, a 930, and a 515, just by glancing this. None of that's described here, so sort of going through some other list, what's fund 910?
it's a capital, I can bring it up. I don't-
Right, but that's my point,
Yeah.
just need to ask
Yeah.
about, for even a one-page sheet that says fund this, it's used for this, it gets money from this, it gets spent from here.
So I have that as a reference page in the spreadsheet update that, so
Yeah.
that it is a point and ideally with instructions. So yeah, I think that's something we can
mhm.
pull out because it's worth understanding.
What funds is he talking about? No.
They're not on that.
Oh, they're not on
list,
this.
So in our
Yeah.
capital plan.
They're on the management
930
plan.
comes out of the selectmen's budget.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, gotcha.
Low SIPs on here, so we
Well,
try
and-
certain things.
I mean, that's just the thing that I see happens every year when we talk about CIP. People think CIP is a bank account, or that like, oh, get it from CIP. Well, that's not what it is at all. It's just a whole bunch of accounts and we're trying to figure out which one you take and,
And just about all of them have no funds in them.
yeah, and but also, and all of them also have special conditions and rules and
Right.
like. But it's so, you can't, you just, I don't know how to explain it to people.
Well, it's hard if you come on new and, it takes a while to just
Yeah,
listen to
Yeah,
what
so-
people go, oh, that can go in low step, that can go in,
yeah,
So, yeah, there probably is a pretty public primer, I guess, saying,
Yeah.
here are the requirements of low SIP. We get whatever, 60,000 a year from low SIP, that is earmarked for certain.
Yeah, and there's specific restrictions to low SIP way you can spend it on.
Correct.
It isn't just a.
It carries over,
yeah.
whereas steep grants are,
Competitive
Competitive
grants
grants,
that we have to
yeah.
apply for every year and those are also.
and I
very
wasn't aware that
specific.
20% we had to have 20% of the project
Yeah,
allocated.
I don't
I wasn't
remember
aware of
that.
I-
Sorry.
I've never heard that either.
Well, that's what,
25%.
He said,
Dylan?
he said it's a 20% match for speed grants. That's new.
related to the animal control, which is about
Yeah.
100.
That might be more like related to a buy-in
Or
with.
a CROG
the-
thing or something.
With the-
Yeah,
The regionalization, yeah.
it's probably because one of their town managers is getting paid extra to do it or something.
That must be it.
All right, well, moving on to President Speak. Jeffrey, you're the only one in the room, you
Oh,
got
could
anything to say?
I just,
No, go ahead, no, go ahead.
no, I just wanted to, just for the record, make it really clear on that last vote for, Lisa. That it
Oh,
was
yes,
4 in favor of the, recommending the facilities manager to the selectmen. None opposed and 1
be abstained.
abstaining. Is that okay that I did
No,
that?
that's fine.
Cause
Thank
he
you.
was on the run and I'm not sure she'd catch all
And she may catch it from
that.
this recording, which hopefully still has battery. All right, President Speak.
I'm all set.
We spoke,
So, like, the facilities manager for the
I'll
school,
just-
Can you give your
Oh,
name?
Linda
name
Meyer,
and,
no.
name and address, text.
so the facilities manager for the schools. Who's currently doing that now, the superintendent, you said, right?
That's the Board of Ed and the superintendent, they have that in their annual budget.
So,
Well,
if,
they have the responsibility for it,
Yeah, they,
but there is no facilities director
No, there
right
is.
now. There is.
Isn't it in the budget?
no, but they don't have one physically on staff.
they haven't
I haven't
hired.
done it yet.
They included, there
No,
was,
because they're not hiring yet.
they had it, I mean, this was Board of Ed discussion really, but they had, they budgeted funds in their budget for this year for a facilities.
So who's responsible for it currently or throughout all these previous years?
Nobody.
Superintendent, nobody.
the superintendent.
So if the superintendent, he or she
So,
won't be responsible for it anymore, will that salary decrease?
well,
Because the responsibility is,
it's not really a that's kind of what the thing is here, right? We have library board.
I don't think it's a super shop.
It's not the super's job, it's not the library board director's job either. You know, but that's the problem we run into, which is why, you know, it's, people, we're a community that does what we have to do, and I know, you know, they'll be out there on site addressing, trying to come up with.
And he knows a lot now,
Yeah,
yeah. He still has to budget, he's still responsible for the all schools budget, town schools budget, which is a huge undertaking, so he will be very much involved with that person.
but yeah, so that's part of their budgetary discussion, and that's their management, board of ed, superintendent management.
the animal control, regionalization, full-time, part-time people, do they ever, any ideas like, look for volunteers? We have a lot of people in town that love animals and maybe can't volunteer to go pick up a stray dog, but let them out, take them for a walk.
They
So,
used
They
to.
volunteers, I think.
Yeah, they definitely had, them, but it hasn't been open for.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
But there
soft.
were people who would do that, and, I don't know.
I didn't
What
see that
Pete's talking-
proactively announced, hey, we're looking for volunteers. So-
Yeah, what Pete's talking about is like, with doing it,
Yeah, they wanna regionalize it for
but they probably
5
will,
other towns.
I think they, I don't know.
So the impetus behind all these having room for the cats and so on, that's all new regulations that came down from the state.
Yep.
So it's
that
like,
has to
oh,
be-
hey, let's go do this. It was mandated, and the increase in square footage and the heating and cooling areas and all that, that all came from the state for new regulations. So then it's either, Wellington will take that on their own, which they could do, or can you get a equivalent or better facility if you regionalize with other people?
I like the
And want more
regionalization.
money to deal with it.
thought.
Yeah.
The other part is, in terms of staffing, that typically we have one person, but no matter how good and dedicated and available somebody is, nobody's around 24/7. Then who do you call if you only have one person?
Right.
That's again where the regionalization comes in, that you have a bigger pool of staff. And being properly insured would be a good thing. So I believe one of the local towns, recently had a, animal control officer rather mangled by a dog,
Mhm.
like permanently.
Where was that?
I'd rather not say,
Oh, cool.
but it was nearby.
But nearby.
Yeah,
So those are some things that can happen. So while walking the dog and feeding the cats is great, and I knew we had a volunteer up there for quite a while. Then before she moved out of town, she was very helpful. But for actually going out on animal calls,
Yeah.
it's like we used to have volunteer, police officers. Go back like 40 years, and people do it on a part-time basis.
Constables or something.
Okay, constables,
Yeah.
but as the regulations came in and the training requirements, those days have come and gone.
I see volunteers that companion animals in Ashford, and I think there's one in East Hartford or Manchester, so, I mean, there's people in town that volunteer there, but they could volunteer like right down the road. Just a thought. You might save on the payroll. I don't like, we were talking about the senior center and the water tank that supplies their water and getting that cleaned. Yes,
Well, yeah,
I
that was a
mentioned-
question,
I
it
mentioned
sounds
that.
like, in this discussion, I don't know about the water tank getting cleaned, but.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
it's gonna get cleaned.
That's just something I remember was a requirement, like every 10 or 15 years, is that, but, and that it was not insignificant in cost, but I can't remember.
I just quickly looked up how to do it, and I mean, like, for a facility, not for my house, and it's pretty quick. But it's a 5-step, you drain it,
Well, but it's huge, it's bigger than a house,
yeah.
and it takes a couple guys, like, you have to climb in and you have to like scrub it inside, like, it's a big thing. And then it's just the volume of the water. And, we didn't have to do it when I was here, but I remember talking about how that was the thing that would need to happen someday.
Do they have to be specifically licensed in that? or-
Yeah, you
Oh,
gotta be
yeah, 'cause the
licensed,
cleanliness
it's a whole
kind of-
thing, there's gotta be another truck on site for the water to go into and then back.
Then you need to provide water while it's all
Right,
shut
in the
down.
meantime.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
So it's not a small project. I
no,
believe the town contracts with Connecticut Water Company to
Right.
operate and maintain that system.
yeah, so hopefully it's like those
Built
kind
in.
of big things are built into that contract, I just don't know. And so I brought it up the other night, so I have no idea.
But it doesn't sound like it's a capital request for it. You know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't need to worry about it.
Here.
Until
So
it comes
just,
here.
just one other quick thing, like during the daytime, I've walked around and I see that they put in the drainage, they like went to the parking lot, they drained out, have anyone else noted this or seen this?
Yeah.
You mean a town
Yeah.
line?
For this
Am I
building.
pointing the wrong direction?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was, fixed for last year, right? Is that-
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah,
Public
they
Works
were just
did it.
working on it about 2 months ago.
yeah. it's
They
gotta
actually
be
piped it all underground now.
pretty
Oh,
recent.
did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice,
Where they are.
nice job, I like it, but they didn't do all the downspouts, and there's one, like, this is the parking lot, right? So kind of over here.
The reason they did out back is they had repeated flooding issues
Sure,
in the planning,
you have to do it,
in the planning and zoning office.
right,
So near as I know, there hasn't been water problems on the other side of
There's
the
like-
building.
there's a gutter that comes out like between a downspout that comes out between the buildings and another one that comes down, and there's a crack right there. You sure there's no water getting in there? I mean, all they gotta do,
All the reports I've heard have just been repeated.
at least on the end of that downspout, put an extension, a little pipe.
That's why we need a facilities manager to keep an eye on those things.
Every time, I don't know, if it blows off a couple of trees next to it to hold. So,
We're not
okay,
deciding.
you know, yeah, I just see it.
Well, I shouldn't say deciding, but.
It's gotta be getting, there's a crack right there in the spar where it has to be going.
So, I mean, from a larger perspective, this committee really just reacts to identified requests, right? We're not the ones actually assessing the buildings, that's why I think the need for a facilities manager was kind of, you know.
And I
And
get
currently,
your point, but
currently the first selectman
I wish he was still there,
Yeah.
in charge of that, I guess, he's responsible for.
I just didn't know if they were gonna get to it.
Well, I
another
mean,
time, and
this-
put that one underground too, or
Because
wait
of,
till it floods and then say, oh, well, now we have to do it.
yeah, I mean, addressing this building is part of a comprehensive picture we need
Yeah.
to ultimately come with, and it honestly has not been.
Well, if you ever hear the daylight, just take a walk around and look at the downspouts and you'll see what I'm talking about.
The brick, I think, was falling on the ground. Pretty bad,
Didn't
dusty.
see the brick.
We're not having any problem finding problems.
Yeah, right. But no, it's been like that for years and
Yeah.
I've mentioned it. Maybe not too often at meetings, but individually to people, and there's a extension pipe there, and so many times I put it back on. And I don't know if the water flow blows it, or the wind blows it off or something, it's like, why is, if it was just connected, the water would go 10 feet from the building where it should be, and not right there and down this crack that's in the pavement, right next to the building, like this far from the building, 4 inches. It's obvious, you don't need a facilities manager to notice, Get
But
water away
there's
from
been
the-
no reports of flooding in the basement.
Not yet, I don't know, I guess we can wait till it floods.
The building configuration's been here for 50 years, so it's not changed.
It's okay.
That's my knowledge base.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Alright, well,
Thank,
yeah,
thank you for your comments, thank you for coming and sticking with us.
thanks for all you do for the town, and my gosh, you guys put in so much time, long meeting.
Yeah,
Uh,
Are you gonna run screaming from the building now?
yeah, and thanks for, volunteering, for being here to get engaged.
Move
With that
to
said, move to adjourn, anybody,
so move.
adjourn.
Second.
Second, yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, meeting
Unanimously,
adjourned
sir.
at 9:05 PM.